Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your Tuesday morning. Are you hungover from your St. Patrick's Day? Are you just now rolling in from your St. Patrick's Day celebration? Either way, this is the program for you. Coming up at 7:05, Tim Graham, executive editor of Newsbusters Media Research Center. There's a lot to discuss about the media. 7:35, Mark Fisher, Maryland State delegate. Still problems with Democrats raising our taxes in Maryland. 8:05, astronaut Tom Jones on the safe return of astronauts today, thanks to SpaceX and Elon Musk. And then at 8:35, Sean Spicer will join us. Pretty great. He's just rolling in from his St. Patrick's Day, I assure you. I am Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Julie, you know that phrase that goes around sometimes, you don't hate the media enough?
Yes.
Or however much you may hate the media, it's not nearly enough, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know. And I'm hesitant to use it sometimes because I do know people who work in the media. You could argue, Julie, that you and I work in the media. And so when you paint with a broad brush like that, you know, some good people might get caught up in it. And I don't think we should hate anyone necessarily. But I'll say this. When it comes to the Daily Beast, that's still a thing, right? This website, Daily Beast,
yes.
They're still publishing stories as it appears. Yeah. We just don't hate the Daily Beast nearly enough.
Yeah, disgusting. Because
yesterday the Daily Beast performed quite possibly one of the most grotesque examples of media malpractice, slander, defamation, outright lies, and deception that one can ever imagine. Here's the headline. Don't tell Melania, in quotes. Trump once offered rising MAGA star his bed. That's something, isn't it? The article was then posted on the X social media platform with a picture of Melania Trump looking sternly and angrily and suspiciously and accusingly at Donald Trump. With this description of the article, new revelations reveal how Trump reportedly offered a female congresswoman his bed as long as she kept it a secret from his wife. That's something else, isn't it, Julie? That's
sounds bad.
Quite the scandal over there. Yeah, good for the Daily Beast getting that scoop. I didn't click on it, of course, because I don't dabble in such tawdry things. By any chance, it appeared, because you were very active about this story on X, I think you clicked on it and read it. Can you give us details about this outrageous scandal here of Donald Trump offering a Ryza MAGA congresswoman his bed?
Yeah, so Congressman Luna actually responded. She recognized this story. She said it, sounds familiar, and she realized they were talking about her. And she wrote, I seldom respond to nasty headlines because I don't like giving trash credibility. However, being that there is allegedly a book coming out with me named and attacking the president, his marriage, and our first lady, I am responding. She said, I was very pregnant at the time, experiencing preeclampsia symptoms. If you don't know what preeclampsia is, I actually had preeclampsia with all three of my children. It is a very dangerous condition that raises your blood pressure, and you can stroke out. So it's very dangerous. Often women
can die. You can die. Labor. You can,
and not just in labor. You can die throughout your pregnancy, and often. And this happened with me, you're told you have to be on bed rest. You have to lay down. You have to stay kind of still. And I was on bed rest with all three of my children. She says...
This is, by the way, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, who did give birth.
Yes.
Gave birth during Trump's first term, I believe.
Yes. So she was very pregnant. She says she was not feeling well. She was having some preeclamptic symptoms. At the time, she was not diagnosed, though. She said as soon as Donald Trump boarded the plane, being the gentleman and looking and good person that he is, he said, if I did not feel well, I could use the back room. He did this in a respectful way and in front of my husband, of which we thanked him. He also assured me that they had a medical team on board. Okay, so basically she goes on to say how kind this was. And then he makes a joke, don't tell Melania, which is funny. And she was probably very stressed. She was probably feeling sick, worried about her baby. Her husband was probably worried about her baby.
It's a stupid joke, I would tell, by the way.
It's actually not a stupid joke. It's actually kind of funny, And
Yeah.
And here he is being kind to her. And then the Daily Beast, now I want to be clear, the Daily Beast reporter on this is an intern, okay? He's some guy named Erky Forster. He's the breaking news intern. He wrote this up. It is, as Representative Luna suggested, it is based on a book that's coming out, so they make this allegation in the book. But of course, Erky Forster, again.
Erky Forster.
Breaking news intern splashes this
That's
out.
his title,
there.
by the way.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear that Julie's not sort of diminishing him or in some way insulting.
No,
his literal title in the byline is breaking news intern.
Yeah. And again, none of that context was put in the article. Now, they updated it. The Daily Beast got ratioed on Twitter, got a lot of criticism. And so, 6 hours after they initially reported the story, they updated it to include Representative Luna's comments. But again, in the initial story, it was basically some salacious story about how Trump was essentially offering this woman, let's go to bed. I mean, it's just disgusting.
This is disgusting is the right word, 100% the right word. And it's despicable and it's typical. And it's why people say you should hate the media. Because this is not, the Daily Beast, I know it's a tawdry little name for a website, but it's considered legitimate
100%.
journalism.
100%.
And the way the page lays out, don't tell Melania, Trump once offered rising MAGA star his bed. And then in red letters on a little, like a diagonal, almost like someone rubber stamped over the headline, it says, "Our little secret."
Yeah.
The alleged joking comments cast new light on the president's eyebrow-raising marriage to Melania Trump. By the way, this is the kind of reporting that it's based on a book by Alex Eisenstadt, who works for Axios.
Oh, there you go.
Axios, of course, a member in good standing of the White House Correspondents Association.
Not for long.
Reporters for the for Daily Caller, reporters for Daily Wire, reporters for Daily Signal, all the other dailies who are conservative.
Right.
They're not allowed in the White House Correspondents Association. But Axios and our friends over at Daily Beast now, apparently, they're just fine.
But this
as
is,
they make these outrageous, disgusting comments. But one other thing here. When you told me that Congresswoman Luna's husband was there, that was the overall tell. I've met Congresswoman Luna and her husband. You don't want to mess with her husband. I assure you that Donald Trump was not making a pass at anybody, let alone this Congresswoman, with that guy sitting right next to her.
But Larry,
everything about this story is wrong.
It's gross, but also, we've been watching how the Democrats have learned nothing. They trot out their most extremist members. They, constantly call Trump, continue to call Trump and Elon Musk, Nazis. They're just this tired playbook that they're going by. And the mantra from the right is they've learned nothing. They've learned nothing, right? And they haven't learned anything. We know their polling numbers are in the, as low as they've ever been, historic lows. Well, the media is the same way. This is horrible what they've done. This is nasty and it's mean. And again, they tried to smear Donald Trump. They tried to smear Congresswoman Luna. And ultimately, they're trying to hurt Melania. I mean, people see this. This is gross. And this is who the media is, the corporate media is. They're absolutely despicable.
And we can certainly say in this case, you don't hate the Daily Beast nearly enough.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
Chuck Schumer is in hot water. We mentioned yesterday that he had his reversal after 24 hours of fighting like hell against Donald Trump and those MAGA Republicans. He, of course, saw the writing on the wall and caved and recognized that he didn't want to be responsible for the Schumer shutdown that he was engineering. He rallied enough senators on Friday to get past the cloture vote, no filibuster. We kept the government funded with the continuing resolution. Can I just pause a minute again and reflect on how much praise Speaker of the House Mike Johnson deserves in all of these scenarios that we've seen? Everyone talks about how great Nancy Pelosi is and how she ruled with an iron fist and she made sure that everyone fell in line. Mike Johnson does not rule with an iron fist, but boy, oh boy, did he herd those cats. He only has, what, 2 seats as his majority, 3 seats as his majority. It's not like he can lose many. And meanwhile, the Trump administration is taking Republican members of the House for the administration, so he keeps attriting even more and more. But he got this continuing resolution through. He got the budget passed. He got all these Republicans in line, and then they held firm. There were no cracks when Schumer decided to filibuster. He stared down Chuck Schumer and the left, and he won. And Johnson's not getting nearly enough credit, as he should, for winning the day here. So I just wanted to boost him up a little bit. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is facing fire and faced fire all weekend long from both sides of the Democrats, the moderates, or the whatever's left of a moderate ring of Democrats who still were angry at Schumer because he signaled that they were going to fight. So some of these, maybe even more reasonable Democrats went ahead and engaged in the fight for like 12, 13 hours. And then suddenly Schumer said, yeah, never mind. Retreat, come on back. And that makes them all look bad. But then the lunatics on the left, Hakeem Jeffries had a press conference. He was asked repeatedly, do you have confidence in Chuck Schumer? And he refused to say so. I mean, it's looking bad for Chuck over there. And this all happens right when he's about to launch a book tour. He wrote a book about anti-Semitism, Julie. Anti-Semitism in America, a warning. And listen, thrilled that anybody is writing a book about the rising tide of anti-Semitism in this country. I sure hope it spends about 95% of its time talking about the pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist demonstrations and the anti-Semitism
that are in his own party.
Yes. Somehow I doubt that. I'm sure he's 50. The problem's on both sides, I'm sure he'll say.
That's right.
And then cite some tweet that was put out by Nick Fuentes or Milo Yiannopoulos and say, see, here's the problem.
Right.
But here's the irony here. Despite the fact that you don't hear Chuck Schumer saying much about the anti-Semitism within his party, he has also now had to cancel his book tour. He claims because of security concerns. Yeah. Starting next week, he was supposed to go on a multi-state media tour promoting this book about anti-Semitism in America, and he says now there are security concerns. One must ask the rhetorical question, security concerns from whom? Who are you afraid of, Chuck Schumer? Yeah. And the obvious answer is the pro-Hamas anti-Semitic left in this country, but also radical members of the Democrat Party who are angry at him for caving on the continuing resolution since he's getting so much criticism. He doesn't want to deal with tough questions. He doesn't want to deal with protesters at the bookstores. Chuck Schumer is, sadly, I think, for the Democrat leadership right now, a dead man walking. He can't last in this position at this point.
No, I agree. And also, it is really interesting that he's going to cancel this book tour. It really does show what a coward he is. But I think more than that, he knows that this would, like you said, it would reveal what his party is about, what the left has become, and really the lack of leadership within the party. That these activists, these radicals, these sort of, AOC type followers, they are the left now. This party is gone. Yes. It really is gone.
That's the Democrats. This is the party that Barack Obama has made it into. Barack Obama, a Saul Alinsky radical community organizer, has now turned the Democratic Party into a Saul Alinsky community organizing entity. That's what they are. It's all they know how to do. Here's Manu Raju on CNN explaining exactly why he had to cancel his tour.
Then the top Democrat in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, going as far as not saying he has confidence in Chuck Schumer. That was a remarkable moment on Friday. Now, we have learned that Schumer and Jeffries did meet behind closed doors yesterday in Brooklyn, trying to get back on the same page. They have huge and consequential fights ahead, but the backlash from the left is real. In fact, Wolf, Chuck Schumer is scheduled to do a book tour in a number of cities on a book that he has authored on anti-Semitism. He has just canceled that book tour, we are learning, because of protests that were scheduled from activist groups who wanted to go after his decision to agree and allow the government funding bill to go forward to avoid a government shutdown. They were furious at his decision to do that. It just shows you the anger on the left and the Democratic Party. Can they get it back together at this key moment?
That's right. So to be clear, as you hear this spun, any security concerns are because of organized protests from the left, Soros-backed organized protests on the left. Is it fair to say right now that Chuck Schumer is reaping the whirlwind? Can we use those words? Do we remember Chuck Schumer?
That's right.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch. I want to tell you, Kavanaugh. You have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
See, he's fine, rallying and ginning up anger and hatred and using violent rhetoric when his target is a conservative Supreme Court justice. But now that whirlwind that he whipped up in a frenzy, it's now turning on him. And that's what happens when your entire political party's base is made up of violent radicals. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36. We're chugging along here on this here morning show. It's your morning show. It's how you wake up. It's how you get started for the day. How do you want to get started for the day? Long-form interview? Two guys just sitting around talking about things aimlessly for an hour? No, you want a fast-paced, news-oriented, headline-oriented, engaging, entertaining, and funny way to get going every morning. That's what we got here. It's called O'Connor and Company, and appreciate you being part of it. Coming up at 7:05, Tim Graham of Media Research Center. 7:35, Mark Fisher, a member of the Maryland State Delegates. 8:05, astronaut Tom Jones. Talk about those astronauts returning to Earth after 8 or 9 months. And then at 8:35, Sean Spicer. Yeah, you get that too. We get the guests, we get the lively conversation, and we get Julie Gunlock, for crying out loud. You're stuck with me, Larry O'Connor, but you got Julie Gunlock. That's
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Are you enjoying the landscape of the new media world that we dwell in right now?
Oh, so
it's
much.
It's amazing how. This is incredible. This is the best of times, I think.
It really is.
For media, especially new media in America and alternative media. It's funny that talk radio is new media because it's literally the oldest platform.
That's right.
Other than newspapers that
That's
you're going
right.
to have. It's the oldest electronic media, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like the renaissance of talk radio in America.
It's just
very exciting.
And it's good to see people using alternative media actively.
Yes.
And the dying
exactly.
of the
and bypassing places
Yes.
like CNN.
Yes.
See, if you were watching CNN yesterday, you were all excited because Casey Hunt, is that her name? Casey with a K. Isn't that cute?
Isn't it Cassie?
Is it Cassie? I would call it Cassie, but I think they call her Casey.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because there's only
Mystery.
one S.
We
See,
don't
if there's
actually
two-
care.
English is weird,
It is.
isn't it?
Yes. We don't care.
Casey Hunt has the Deputy Chief of Staff of the White House, Stephen Miller, on the air to explain the latest story with regard to the deportation of criminal, illegal aliens who were in this country and associated with gangs. Do you know how bad these guys are, Julie? They are so bad that the country of their origin, Venezuela, refused to take them back.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, tells you that there is some validity to the White House's assertion that Venezuela sent them here on purpose, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's part of the argument here is that,
Yes.
no, this is an invasion from a foreign country of violent criminals in our country, illegally, allowed in under Biden. They've committed crimes. We've arrested them. We've deported them. Venezuela won't take them back. We send them to El Salvador because we have an agreement which we're allowed to make because we're the White House, and we make agreements with foreign countries.
Yeah.
And so the bing, bang, bung, we did it, and a D.C. Circuit judge is not going to stop us from deporting them. Casey Hunt now is engaged in an interview with said Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller. And if you were tuning into CNN hoping that she would elucidate facts and information about this story, well, you did get a lot of facts and information, but it was in the form of a hostile debate. Listen to how it started with Casey Hunt. Intro question was fine, but then she immediately engaged in an argument with Stephen Miller. Here's cut one. Listen.
So you called the judge's order just earlier today, quote, patently unlawful, end quote, and said that it was an assault on democracy itself. Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the president the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up. At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment? And I fail to see how there's any other way but to start with where we're starting here.
I fail to see how there's that. You see what I'm saying? She couldn't help herself but then suddenly engage in an argument.
Yes.
And a debate. And I'm sorry, you've not convinced me. I fail to see your. And also, did you notice not Mr. Miller or Deputy Chief of Staff Miller? It was Stephen.
Stephen. Yes. Tis.
Stephen.
Yes.
Oh,
it's just unbelievable.
It is great. And I want you, there's so much of this, and I want you to hear as much as possible, not just Stephen Miller's brilliance, but Casey Hunt's petulant, argumentative debating style.
And I also
that is indicative of CNN.
And really quickly, because it's radio, I wish you could see her face. It smelled like her 12-year-old cousin just let one rip right next to her because she looks so disgusted.
Vivid imagery, which, by the way, is another hallmark of this new media landscape that we are pioneering here on O'Connor and Company. Thank you, Julie, for that.
You're welcome.
It's 5:43. You heard how it started with Casey Hunt and Stephen Miller. Now let's check in on how it's going. It's a 9-minute segment. I implore you to try to see the entire clip as we will share it on our social media. But here we go. Cut 2 now, Miller versus Hunt.
President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio had engaged in intensive diplomacy to obtain a bilateral security agreement with the nation of El Salvador. If a district court judge can enjoin that bilateral security agreement, then we do not have a democracy.
Stephen, you've made your argument.
We do not have a foreign policy.
We've heard you say this. Did you ignore, did the administration ignore the order from the district judge? It's a simple question.
I've answered it. I've answered it because the Department of Justice has made a filing in the court. But let me make another point. The judge, in this case, put the lives of every single person on those aircraft at risk. Did he know how much fuel was in those planes? Did he know the flight conditions? Did he know the weather conditions? Did he know how many crew hours? Did he know the need for crew rest? Did he know any of that? No. This judge violated the law. He violated the Constitution.
So do
he
you
defied
think that
the system of government that we have in this country.
Because that does seem to be what you're arguing.
These same district court judges didn't do a damn thing to stop Joe Biden from flooding this nation with millions of illegal aliens. Do these district court judges didn't issue any injunctions to save the lives of Jocelyn Nungary or Laken Riley or anyone
the federal
else?
Courts? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that what you said, there's a separation of powers. The judiciary exercises judgment and relief.
I don't speak for the White House. You are here to speak You're here to speak for the White House. I just want you to answer that one simple question.
I am. Ready? Here we go. Under a proper reading of the Constitution, district court judges provide relief to individual plaintiffs seeking relief. District court judges do not have the authority, as a general matter, to enjoin the functioning of the executive branch. But their authority is at its lowest point when the president is exercising his powers as commander-in-chief.
That's 100% correct. And the fact that Casey Hunt is frustrated and wants to continue arguing and you understand she's trying to get him to say some sort of gotcha statement.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of actually elucidating and illuminating this topic, which is important, it may seem archaic. It may seem like it's some sort of splitting hairs constitutionally. And of course, they're going to raise the issue of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. And it's such an old law. As we mentioned yesterday, the Constitution's pretty old too, but we still respect it and adhere to it.
Yeah.
And don't even get me started on the Logan Act, which the media love to invoke, which is also very old and has never actually been applied in any way, but they certainly used it to bring down General Michael Flynn.
Sure.
But you can hear how this is going here between Stephen Miller and Casey Hunt. And the bottom line that Miller is making here is you cannot have a situation where a district judge is overriding a national security foreign policy decision made by the president and the Secretary of State. You can't run the country that way.
When did district judges have more power than the president of the United States? That is what is fundamental here.
Especially on foreign policy.
Yeah, especially on foreign policy.
On
the other thing that's fundamental here is let's ignore the argument being had here. Okay, I mean you can't, but it's not the role of Cassie Hunt to argue with a White House official. They could have had another. If this were a proper station, if this were a proper news organization, they would have had somebody else on to argue with Stephen Miller. Instead, it's the anchor. It's not the anchor moderating.
Host of the show.
It is the anchor who's that is their role.
That's CNN.
Yes,
that's right. No, CNN is a joke, and Casey Hunt was an absolute embarrassment here. Here's a little bit more. I want you to hear more. There's cut 3.
And I asked you a question, you never answered it. Can a judge enjoin troop movements overseas? Can a district court judge enjoin troop movements overseas?
Stephen,
yes or no?
I am not going to get into the
just say no, and then you'll know that I'm right.
This is a
just
separate
say no,
question,
and you'll know that
Stephen.
I'm right.
Okay, we're not talking about
not.
other troops
the
overseas.
president.
I need to ask you about something else.
The president issued a proclamation delineating in detail how the Venezuelan regime sent this gang, this terrorist organization, to our shores. And by the way, and I love being here, but all the outrage that we are seeing from the Democrat Party and from the corporate media, none of that outrage was expressed when little Jocelyn Nungare was tortured and beaten to death. None of that outrage was expressed when our nation was flooded by illegal aliens.
I have just been simply trying to get a simple answer to a simple question. No outrage necessary about whether or not the White House is the head of the court.
But I am.
But I need to ask you one more question. I'm going to have to let you go.
Democrats defending trained Iragua instead of celebrating President Trump expelling these terrorists from our midst. And I'm glad for the opportunity to explain how the separation of powers does work. If the president has to litigate every national security action with 700 district court judges, then we don't have a functioning democracy.
Let me ask you one other.
It continued like that, as I said, for 9 minutes, but it's an important
good
exchange.
For him.
It not only, great for Stephen Miller. He's so good at this, and I liked it. Stephen, I think, has a certain level of disregard for social norms and for what is considered to be how one is supposed to behave in polite society or whatever and for whatever reasons, and that it serves him so well in settings like this. He's a perfectly lovely human being. I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple of times, and he couldn't be a nicer guy.
I would just like to say
he knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just like to say I have a little sympathy for Stephen Miller's wife. Can't be easy arguing with that man. I said broccoli. I said broccoli, Stephen. No, let me lay this out. You did not say broccoli.
Stephen, I asked you to fold your laundry. All right, now let's start at the beginning on this. All right? Yes, 100%. You're right. No, I'm sure that they never have anything to argue about. They're
never.
Fabulous. Good for you, Stephen Miller. Casey Hunt, CNN, do better if you're capable, which I'm pretty sure you're not. It's 5:53.